episode of Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I'm your host, Reggie Key, and today I have my neighbor, John, with me. John, thanks for coming through.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Likewise.
So we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but it's good that you're like 2 houses down.
Literally 2 houses down.
You can just come over and we can just get the conversation going.
Yeah.
So I've already kind of talked to you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, but this is going to be good because I think that I haven't talked to you in depth about this workshop that I offer to students, this book that I developed in a workshop that just is a tool for empowering people to believe that they have genius potential on the inside of them. So I don't want to be doing all the talking, so I'm going to be asking you some questions and no wrong answers. We're just having dialogue. All right, is that cool?
Yeah.
So cool. First question, really simple. John, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
I mean, I've never really used that term genius before. I am a smart individual. I can be really quick-witted. As far as genius, I don't know. I mean, my readings on scripture and just seeing examples such as Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, I really do believe that God just gives an individual intelligence and genius in certain situations, and then at the same time can pull that away in other certain situations. And I would say a lot of that, if there's moments where I think I speak well outside my mind and body,
sure.
And I know that was not me at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, that had to be God. And I'm already getting chills actually now. So definitely the Spirit of God is with us right now. So that's really cool. So yeah, I'll stick with that.
I want you to note this. I was not willing. I'm a minister, but I was not willing to bring God into this. My guest brought him up first, so I have free reign to discuss it now.
You do.
So what you're speaking of is what I see in the Bible. 2 of the gifts of the Holy Spirit are words of wisdom and words of knowledge. Mm-hmm. I can definitely attest to what you're talking about. I remember when we purchased our first home, and of course that's a brand new venture. You have no idea what to say, who to speak to. Mm-hmm. I remember being on the phone with an agent, and she began to ask me questions, and I began to answer back. And when I finished the conversation, I hung up. I'm like, I don't know what I just said.
I've been there before.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what just happened. And that is a word of knowledge about a topic that, if it's knowledge that you're able to gain outside of your own purview, and then if you're able to get instruction on how to use that knowledge, that is definitely a supernatural or spiritual gift that's endowed to you for that moment. So even as you spoke about Daniel getting, I don't know that it ever got removed from him, because he was able to oversee several different kingdoms with the knowledge that he had God on his side to help him navigate through their systems.
Yeah.
But for everyday life and everyday environments that we encounter, yes, there are these words of knowledge and words of wisdom that we can be given in an instant that manifests when the time is needed, right? Mm-hmm. But this genius idea, though, is something that is innate to all of us. That's my whole goal. Like, if you remember the title, it's Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny, right? Each of us has an uncommon destiny, but how we get to it, we tap into this common genius that all of us have. The thing of it is, many times we assert genius in other people before we assert it in ourselves. So while you were kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I would, if I would say that I have genius, I bet if I asked you, like, tell me who you think is a genius, first person that comes to mind, who do you consider to be a genius?
I would say probably Tesla.
Yeah,
that would be a great example.
Nikola Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. And so because that association that you have, and all of us have an association, because you attribute genius to Tesla, we often will go ahead and say, well, I don't have that knowledge that Tesla has, so no, I'm not the same level as him. Mm-hmm. And there is some truth to that. You're not the same level as him, but it's not really a level as much as it is a lane. Like, he has a different lane than you have. Mm-hmm. And so, most of the time when I talk to people and I ask them, like, who do you consider to be a genius, they tell me Einstein. And Einstein, you can't trust the internet, but there are some quotes that I've heard and read from Einstein that I pull on all the time to help people kind of deconstruct this word genius. And this post comes from Einstein purportedly. Check it out. He says, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
True. That's, yeah. I mean, in that context, yeah.
So, in that example, we're the tree. Like Einstein is like the bear, and Einstein is climbing these trees like nobody's business. And the tree is like physics, academics, IQ. And we as the fish, if we keep allowing ourselves and other people to judge us by how well we climb a tree, I mean, we're not even in the right lane. We're not even in our right element, right? A fish is designed to swim. A fish is designed to be in water. A fish cannot reach its full potential outside of its element. So the element of the tree is not what it should be judged by. If it continues to be judged by that, I mean, a fish out of water is not going to survive.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm all about not just surviving, but helping people thrive, understanding that it's okay to say, hey, look, I have genius potential. Maybe it sounds better to say I have genius potential than to say I'm a genius, right? There's a humility that we all try to walk in, but sometimes that humility can cut off our legs despite, where we're trying to go, that destiny that we're supposed to be walking in. And so the idea that genius is not just academic, it's not based on IQ alone. It's not based on your GPA, right? I'm not going to get into what your GPA was coming out of high school, coming out of college, whatever. But it doesn't have anything to do with that. If you did have a high GPA, a high IQ, that's just a particular type of genius. But there are plenty of others for you to begin to explore, for all of us to begin to explore, so that we can have the maximum impact in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and the world around us, right?
Yeah.
So, because if you don't really value the fullness of who you are and the measure of who you're meant to be, then you may limit yourself in what you feel like you can do. What do you think about that? You agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, in a way, just understanding where your passions are, understanding where God wants to place you, and growing yourself and challenging yourself there. And you make a really excellent point in regards to sometimes humbleness could create some sort of barrier where you don't want to overachieve in fear that you may be arrogant or overstep your bounds or overstep what you should be doing. So it's a good thing to keep in mind as you're exploring and challenging yourself, but also testing yourself too.
Yeah. The thing of it is, the genius has to start internally first. Because, I don't know about you, but I had a lot of insecurities growing up, just because of the environment that I was in. I did get good grades, but the environment I was in, the kids, I went from a private school to a public school in 5th grade, and that public school ate me up. Like, they was like, you don't fit in because you don't dress like us, you don't talk like us, you out here like knocking all the grades out. It was like, yeah, and we gonna torture you though, and they did, right? And so the insecurities that I had sometimes made me downplay who I was. I never like shortchanged, my work ethic and my grades and everything, but I definitely didn't boast about them. I was not going to let you know unless you needed help, right? And so there's another aspect of humility whereby it's not necessarily not wanting to come off arrogant, but it's not wanting to be accountable either. If I go out there and I say, hey, look, I excel at XYZ. I mean, we got a neighbor, right? We have a neighbor who excels at drywall, all things, do DIY, build it yourself, right? And he could be a type of person, I want to get him in on here, man. I would love to interview. I'm not going to say his name, but I would love to interview. You know what I'm talking about. But he could choose to keep his genius to himself and not tell people that he excels at building things, right? But that's not who he is at all. He is always in somebody's house helping somebody fix the many different errors that some of our builders some of the builders in this community have had. He's willing to share it.
Oh yeah.
But he had to first get comfortable with understanding what he had and how he's good with his hands, and do some things, I'm sure, in his own house and with his own mentor before he then turned and say, you know what though, like I see some stuff broken in our neighborhood and in these different houses, and I know how to do something about it though. And so that's not, and he's not like, he's willing to teach, right?
Oh yeah.
He doesn't lord it over you and make you feel small about the knowledge that he has. And that's what real genius does, right? Real genius is not afraid to be accountable. Real genius is not afraid to, like I always define humility this way. Humility, we always focus on one side of the spectrum, not thinking too highly of yourself. But in truth, real humility is also not thinking too lowly of yourself. Because as you brought God into the equation, and he's very much a part of the equation, we are made in the image and likeness of God. So if we begin to shortchange ourselves, we're really shortchanging who we're made in the image of and the fact that he designed us for a purpose. Right?
Yep.
So it just makes good sense. The next thing I wanted to do is just move right into the first component of genius, which is passion. So, John, without me telling you what I think passion is and how it relates to this equation, what are you passionate about?
I mean, I have to look at my extracurriculars or hobbies that I tend to dive into, and that tends to be food and understanding food and
yeah, I remember.
growing food, but also grappling or martial arts as well. You know, jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. Those tend to be the things that I really like to and enjoy diving into.
Yeah. You made me think about that zucchini you made, man. I forgot about that. That was good. That was good eating, man.
And that was just a vegetable.
Right. So, would you say, is it that you're passionate about cooking, or are you passionate about nutrition?
Good point. Not many people would separate those two or to understand and categorize that. But yes, it's more of just nutrition and health. I think it was one of the philosophers or back in the day that would say, let food be thy medicine. And I truly believe that. The passion of food started with just eating really good, flavorful food. And then eventually you dive into, well, what are in these ingredients?
Yeah.
And you start diving into ingredients, you start reading the back of labels, and you start seeing all these words that
you can't pronounce.
You cannot pronounce, and be like, how can I get into the essence of what this food should actually taste and let the ingredient be the star? And you start diving and looking into that, and then after a while you start deciding, well, what's the medicinal use of each food? And you start learning the medicinal use of each food, from garlic to onions to herbs that we eat. And you start to realize the genius of our ancestors and how they combined food together to help prevent sickness and to provide us nutrition, and the purpose of raising good quality livestock as well, and the effort of going into that too. So over years and years, I slowly start to understand and to dive into those and understand the history of food too. So yeah, I mean, that's one of my big passions, I would say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, kind of staying on the same topic, I don't foresee myself wanting to own a restaurant or cook for people. I mean, that's really hard work.
Yeah, you're right.
And on top of that, with the hours too, I rather enjoy creating meals for family and loved ones, you know, and then just kind of educating them the importance of food and how it could benefit you. And it kind of goes back to scripture too. You know, God used food as a way to create fellowship with man.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. There was two things that you said. Let me see if I can go back to the earliest one. Even you talked about the ancestors and how they knew what herbs to add to not only bring flavor but bring health. One of my former people that I interviewed, he said that health is wealth. And he was coining it from someone else. He didn't make that up. But that ability for our ancestors to know what to use taps back into that word of knowledge and word of wisdom. Because sometimes I think about it like, how do we have this knowledge base of medicine that comes from natural sources? I mean, obviously there was some trial and error. Obviously somebody ate some stuff and died. So like, okay, we're not doing that again, right? But there does come a point where God, because he is ever trying to release his wisdom and knowledge into the world, to heal us, to keep us whole, to restore us, that's given to people on an individual basis. And then once it works, then of course that becomes part of the culture, right? It's passed on. It should be either orally or written down, it's passed on from generation to generation. So we have access to all that, especially in this day and age where, you know, everything is at your fingertips, right? So there's really no excuse to not be healthy, but you know, we come up with plenty of excuses, time and things like that. But I want to redefine passion, if it's okay.
Okay.
Because if we look at passion from this perspective, it gives us an idea of what it is that we were purposed to do. All right. And this idea is not something that I made up on my own. I read this book called The Assignment by Mike Murdock. And in it, he talks about, what is your Popeye moment?
Popeye moment.
What is so, you know, Popeye, every episode he would find himself in some situation where, you know, most of the time it was, you know, getting beat up by Bluto, right? And over olive oil, and then he would just say, you know, I've had all I can stand, I can't stand no more. He would reach for that spinach, that can of spinach, he'd crack it open, and then it'd be over from that point on. He reached his point of, all right, this is my threshold, I'm not going to take this anymore, right? And so that defines your assignment, according to Mike Murdock, and it just left an indelible impression on me. And so passion to me is not about finding necessarily what you love. It's actually about finding what you hate. Right? So what you hate in the world, and we're not talking about who you hate. We're talking about what you hate, because the thing that you hate in the world is something that impacts you, your loved ones, your family in a negative way. And you're like, man, somebody should do something about that. When you see it, it literally grieves you when you see it being executed. Like, this is terrible. Somebody needs to do something about this. And typically, you know, we'll point and say, like, somebody else needs to do something about this. But if it's something that you keep harping on, if it's something that you keep coming back to, then odds are you are the one that's meant to do something about it. Because it's not bothering anybody else. Well, you know, we share similar passions with people. So it's not like you're the only one that is going to bother you, that's going to be bothered by it. That's the beauty of Genius. You can be on your side of the world addressing this thing that you hate. Somebody can be on the other side of the world addressing the same thing, but they're coming at it from different angles and with different talents. And so it's getting dismantled, this thing that causes this grief in the world for people, but it's being handled differently by different people. And in so doing, it's pulling it down so that it doesn't impact people negatively anymore. And most of the time, the thing that if you really focus on it, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond, if you really focus on what it is that you hate, it's going to be something large. It's going to be something probably systemic. And I'm going to give you a good example in a little bit, but I want to give you a chance, like I said, to respond to that. So thinking about, do you agree that, okay, yeah, what you hate in the world is something that you were purposed to fix, and I can see how that can drive you and being passionate about it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think a different word that you could also bring into it is what you failed the most that impacted you too.
Say that again?
What you failed in life that impacted you the most would tend to be the part where you want to succeed or do something about as well. I mean, I guess if I had to be honest and look back at my grappling years, at one point or another, younger age of my life, such as middle school, I got beat up by a couple of kids. And from then on, I wanted to learn how to defend myself.
Sure.
Not hurt people, but defend myself. And I found that in wrestling. And then after wrestling, you know, I found many characteristics revealed to me about myself and strengthened through wrestling, hard work, working as a team, but working for yourself at the same time. You get to understand your personalities in how you combat or fight, and that how it is part of your personality too. So I would agree. I mean, part of my passion with martial arts does stem from a time where I felt weak, I felt defenseless, and I wanted to improve on that. And with it, it made me not scared to try other things or stand up for myself. It really definitely correlates with it. With food and health, I would say at one point I felt unhealthy. I didn't like being in bad shape, and I didn't like going to the doctor, and I wanted to find a way to be healthy. So that's...
And I knew that was there. I knew that was going to come out under the surface. I was like, when I started to realize, when you reminded me, because I remember like at our first block party, you were the one that was bringing out the vegetables, like this zucchini I'm still talking about, right? Yeah. And I remember you saying like, hey, look, I want to make sure we got some greens, some good greens though, because not every green is good. Yeah. Right. Like lettuce has no nutritional value, but you went and brought something with real nutritional value that was good for us, right? In the middle of all this, charred meat we was going to be consuming, right? Yeah. So nothing wrong with charred meat, but I'm just saying. So I knew that was at the surface, and I just wanted to see if you could make the connection yourself, and you did. So that's what's up. The thing about it, I use the word hate because most of the time I'm dealing with middle schoolers and high schoolers that don't like to talk a lot, right? And in these workshops, I don't like to be the only one talking. So I know if I ask somebody what their purpose is, they're like, I don't know. But if I say, hey, what you hate though? They're like, like all the hands go up, like, right? So that's why I tend to use that word. And to put the biblical perspective on it, the world is broken. And the world is broken because of sin, right? And God looks at the world and he sees this brokenness, and he put us on this planet to fix it. He put us on this planet to partner with him and to be his heavenly or his earthly representative, to go out into the world and say, okay, I mean, that's what the whole purpose of the Garden of Eden was. He was like, he put Adam in there. He said, I need you to tend to this garden. And if he had tended to it the way he was supposed to and then get distracted, that garden was going to do what? It was going to grow and eventually overtake the world with order and restore it from the disorder that it had fallen into, right? And so as God looks out on this world that he created and he sees the brokenness in this world, it grieves his heart. What he does is he gives each of us a piece of his heart. This is going to grieve you the way it grieves me. And it's going to grieve you to the point where you're going to be like, I got to do something about it. And so, the nutritional aspect for you, being healthy, the ability to defend yourself and not be picked on. And the beautiful thing about something that you said, here's the other thing that you said that I like. You said that once you got confident in wrestling, you started with wrestling, right? You said, okay, what are the things that I learned from wrestling, the confidence, right? And that allows me then to go into other avenues and then bring that confidence, bring that ability to be reactive to a situation and to say, okay, how do I make this into a situation that's to my benefit, not to my detriment? Like getting out of a hold, right? And flipping it on your opponent. What else did I hear about when I hear about wrestling? It escapes me right now, but I mean, I would imagine that you could eventually teach wrestling. You could teach, and you already said that, one of your goals is to not only just cook for your family, but, whoever wants to listen, you would teach them how to do this for themselves. I had a lady at my church, she's like in her 70s, super healthy, super fit, and she's always telling whoever will listen, like, here, if you get these components into your diet, it's going to help you with arthritis, it's going to help with inflammation, it's going to help with all these different things. And a lot of the times, I talk to her because I'm like, hey, look, I want to learn from you, right? But she's like, it's so frustrating sometimes because I have all this knowledge, but people just really don't want it, right? But that doesn't stop her, though. Because she's driven, because she's passionate, she still is like, you give her a platform, she's going to talk about it. She will post up on the walls for us to see, like, these different things. You combine these different things to help your weight, all this other type of stuff. So it doesn't even matter whether you're getting compensated for it, whether people are listening. If you get an opportunity to talk about it or to do something, you know that you're operating your genius because you'll take advantage of it. You'll go after it, right? So it's a really important thing to discover, because without it, like you can just kind of be existing and kind of aimless, right? So, John, there's something else that you said that I wanted to tap into, and it keeps escaping me, but I'll continue forward. So I'll give you the example. The example that that I always bring up is, I had some kids. I told you I do these workshops for kids, elementary, middle, high school, college even too. Because if you can figure out what your genius is, you can figure out if you need to go to college, and if you need to go, what your major should be, right? Because you'll focus around this genius. But yeah, these were elementary school kids, about 9 or 10 of them, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. I would spend weekly. I would just go to their school and chop it up with them. They were all in one class. They were all in one class because they were all on what's called an individual education plan, or an IEP, which is special ed. Right, that's what we would call it back in the day. Mm-hmm. They were in special ed because they didn't learn like everybody else. They had anger management issues. They had all these different things that was labeled as a disruption in the class, and so they would put them in this one class every day together. So you can imagine it was pretty much chaos in the class, right?
Yeah.
So the principal was desperate. She was like, "Look, man, if you can come in and talk to them and just help them, understand something to get them to have better control, whatever it is, just come in and talk to them." So I started talking to them about this genius equation, and I started asking them, "Tell me what you hate." And do you know what they said universally? These 9 to 10 kids who could never agree on anything. When I said, "What do you hate?" What do you think they told me?
Probably say school.
Yep.
The school system.
Absolutely. They said, "I hate school, Mr. Key. Now what?" Because they thought they got me too. They was like, "I just messed up your whole presentation." I'm like, "Actually, you perfectly said what the right answer was." Not that there was a right answer, but when you look at the perspective of, if the thing that you hate because it impacts you negatively, if you were put on this planet to do something about it, then I was like, I'm looking at 9 to 10 future educators. And they got real quiet on me. Because they was like, because typically, their mindset was to get as far away from school as possible, right? Because school made them feel awkward. School made them feel like they didn't belong. School made them feel all types of negative things about themselves. But instead of running from it, I'm hoping that I planted a seed to help them run towards it, to fix it, right? Because, and this gets into learning styles. Their learning style was not the style that was being taught to them, right? A lot of them were expeditionary. That's why they couldn't stay still. They like to work with their hands. But that's not how we learn in school. We learn through logical reasoning, math, right? We learn through audio and visual. And they couldn't sit still for that. And instead of learning different learning styles as a teacher, I mean, how can the teacher has 30 kids? How can they try and get into every different learning style to reach all their students? It's really a difficult task, right?
It is.
But if these young men embrace their learning style, went to school to become an educator, and then let their learning style become their teaching style, and come back to the system that I don't want to say abused them, but that didn't treat them right, now they're offering something that the system doesn't have, and it's making it more robust, and it's completing it, and that's how it should work. So to me, it's a revolutionary idea, and that's why I'm trying to talk to as many people as I can about it. I'm still kind of stalling, trying to remember what it is. This other thing I was going to say that you mentioned is still not coming back to me. But I'll just move to the next part of the equation, which is talent. So we've identified that, hey, look, if you see something that's broken in the world and you keep talking about it, you're the only one that seems to see it, you should probably do something about it. But the thing of it is, like our neighbor, he has a wealth of tools in his garage, right?
Oh, yes.
There's nothing that he can see that he probably doesn't already have the tool for. And each of us has at least one tool to address the thing that's broken. And the thing that's our tool is our talent, right? So, I mean, if you just expand the entire equation, your purpose in life is to discover what your talent is and apply it to your passion. When you do that, you unlock your genius. So the question for you is, like, what is your talent?
I definitely have relationship building as a talent. Also being able to teach, patience along with that. And I hope to say humbleness as well. Some discernment, I would say, from certain situations. God gives it to me. But I would say teaching is definitely a talent of mine. Along with being able to work hard if I need to, depending on the situation as well.
Okay. All right. So can you see how I'm seeing a picture begin to develop on how your talent can be applied to what you're passionate about, right? And what it becomes to me is, I'm hearing like a nutritionist, right? We're not a nutritionist. Some nutritionists do go into households and cook for families. I'm not saying you do that, because, like you said, that requires a lot of time. But
it does require a lot
but
of time.
you can. There is a market for people who can, because everybody is trying to get on this healthy kick, most of us, right? And so, but we don't know how. How do you start? How do you reframe your diet? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I see if your gift, if your talent is teaching, and you are focused on being healthy, and you're focused on not just consuming what keeps you healthy and then physically doing what it takes to keep you healthy, then that sounds like a nutritionist to me. That sounds like, and I'm just throwing it out there. You know, you may be like, yeah, not, but I'm just telling you how it fits, how it comes together for me. A lot of times, you know, my wife can attest to this. When I go to these schools, sometimes the teachers are in the background like, yeah, I'm in the wrong profession. Because they'll realize, they'll put it together themselves, and they'll be like, you know what though, I need to make a change. I need to shift into another realm. And so this might be something that you never thought of before, but you know, I mean, that's definitely a way to be self-employed. That's definitely a way to have an impact on the community around you. I have a teenager now. So the thing about having a teenager is the things that the knowledge that I have, he either doesn't ask for it, or when I give it to him, he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna find this out on my own. And I say that to say, you know, when you start inward and then you begin to work outward, like the first people who you begin to engage is your family. And that's what I did with my kids. That's why my kids were authors at 7 and 9, because I was like, Daddy's a wordsmith. That's my talent. So you're probably a wordsmith too, because talent is definitely generational. This teaching that you say you have, it wouldn't surprise me if you told me that you had some teachers in your family, because it doesn't come out of nowhere. God does gift it to you, but sometimes he'll gift it. Most of the time he gifts it through your family. And it manifests with the right environment, with the right coaching, with the right nurturing. Well, he's the nature, but with the right nurturing can come out. But yeah, with my kids, especially my son, right now it's at a time where, you know, he doesn't necessarily want to receive my information. And so what do? Do I just say, oh well, I guess I just keep this to myself, or do I keep hitting the same? Nah, like I'm gonna turn to, all right, who can I mentor? I mean, you saw the clarion card that I put out the other day. Like who's looking to be a mentor? We have these kids in these districts that don't know, you know, how to navigate school and how to navigate life for whatever particular reason. And so I reached beyond my house now, and that's how it just goes outward. Like who will be willing to listen to what information I have, right? And I mean, that's how you begin to build clientele, because there's plenty of people, like I said, who don't know the things that you know, the skill set that you have. And so, you know, it's just an opportunity to dispense information. Like we have another neighbor who loves to take in information and then give it to everybody. He'll process it and make it in a way that's palatable to people, and he just gives that information out. And so, well, I feel like I've been talking for a little bit. Like, how does that hit you? Like, what do you think about that? You can tell me very honestly, like, no, that's not it.
I mean, in a way, you're kind of close. And the reason I say that is there are many reasons why we moved into this area. One of it was to get a bigger home, but a little bit bigger land, and start growing food for ourselves.
Okay.
So, you know, in this new chapter, we have been slowly gathering seeds, actual seeds of crops, and also soil, and the goal was to get some intro level basic knowledge of carpentry, to be able to make garden beds in my backyard and start growing some food. So
okay.
You're kind of right there. Now also thinking back, you know, my son, who's only 4 years old, he's already coming to the kitchen and wanting to help me out, and he can literally grab a few raw eggs, crack it, put it in a bowl, mix it up, put salt on it, and then hand it over to me.
No eggshells.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, a little bit of eggshells.
But you know, adults get a little bit of eggshells.
Yeah. And hands it to me, and he watches me learn how to scramble eggs. And I've been telling him some of the minor details, such as let the pan heat up, feel the heat on the pan, wait for the pan to be hot, now add the oil, look at the oil, look how it expands, and now put in the eggs. And he's already learning how about the use of salt and the ratio of salt with foods in order to bring out the flavor. So out here he has plastic kitchen knives as well, so sometimes he goes up and cuts his own fruit, goes in the fridge. So it's pretty entertaining or funny to see some of those small little things. So, and then my daughter, she has like a little stand, and she pops up on the kitchen and tries to see what I'm doing as well. So,
yeah. So see, you have these physical seeds, but then you're also planting these really, they're really spiritual seeds as well in your children. I mean, that's how it works. Before I knew that I had something that could be given out to the masses, yeah, like I told you, I tested it on my kids, and you know, like yours picked up this skill at a young age, they picked up this skill to write at a young age, and that's really the heart of the matter. Is whatever we're learning at this age, it's not that we're learning it late, but the generation that comes behind us should always be a little bit ahead of the game, because they're giving them this information earlier than we got it, and then they should be able to give it earlier, and it just that way they have an ability to impact the world for a longer amount of time than we do, right? And that's definitely the purpose of children in the first place, right? To be able to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue the world, and restore what was broken. So that's pretty much all I wanted to. You're already, most people are already walking in their genius. They just haven't called it that. And so I think if you just have this extra little this little dimension on it, it just gives you a little more like, okay, I'm doing something with some intentionality. It's not random that you're here. I mean, I've been here. You said you need some carpentry. Even if you don't have the carpentry skill, we already talked about the person you can talk to.
Exactly.
That can show you or can do the work for you.
Exactly.
Because now it becomes this collaborative effort. Like, hey, he might not be focused on nutrition the way you are, but he can glean from you, and you can glean from him. And I very much see you as a part of this community. You've been placed here for a season, for such a time as this, to bring that. Don't ever feel like nobody wants to hear what I have to say when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to just maintaining healthy bodies, right? If you continue to, like, you're a fit dude, man. Like, if you continue to walk out when it get hot again, and people are like, man, like I done gained 10 pounds. I'm like, John, I lost 10 pounds. They're gonna come to you and be like, what did you do over the winter, right? You'll begin to lead by example, and people will eventually begin to follow. Like I don't know if you struggle with that, like feeling like I don't know if I have anything. You and I sound like we have kind of a similar background. You might have got picked on because of your size. You didn't say it was size, but I got picked on because I was short too. But I got picked on because of my grades. And what it does is it can sometimes still kind of mess with our mind, because we're like, nobody's checking for me, man. Like nobody really wants to hear what I have to say. But that's not true at all. In fact, I think leaders are often picked on at a young age to kind of squash that leadership skill that is meant to bring about a better understanding and a better way to interact with the world. And like disorder doesn't want that. Disorder wants to say, okay, no, like marginalize them, like those little boys in my class. They were marginalized, like pushed to the side, right? But people like you and I can't be pushed to the side forever, right? We've both responded, but there are others who don't respond and bounce back the way you and I have, and we have a responsibility. So, just know that you're equipped, and I look forward to seeing this garden.
May take a while.
Hey,
but a little at a time.
A little at a time. That's all you do. It's all about, what do I have? What's in my hand, right? And what am I meant to do with it? And you don't start big. If you start big, you're gonna oftentimes choke, because it's gonna sometimes it can be hard to see what the vision is. Vision most of the time is big, but the execution has to start small. It's like, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time. One
bite at a time. See, a nutritionist would know that off the top. You guys do that right away.
Yeah.
And so, the little bit that you're doing is eating this elephant one bite at a time. But the goal is this joker's going to get consumed, though.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see what it is that you're going to consume, and how you're going to lead us into a better nutritional and healthy future.
Yeah. The goal is for all of us to be just more independent, have more knowledge of how to preserve food and maximize the nutrition of food. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Well, that's all I got, John. I appreciate the time.
Likewise.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll be checking the backyard every once in a while.
All right.
Take it easy.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend. available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.